Hello. If this is your first time to my channel, my name's Dara. My pronouns are they, them. I am a therapist in Colorado. I have written a book about discovering your gender identity. I have a YouTube channel, in case you didn't know that. I also have been spending many years figuring out my own gender identity stuff. I received some questions from somebody that I am doing one-on-one coaching with. I thought they were really good questions that I could just create a video and share about myself, because I've heard that it's pretty useful for people to hear about other people's non-binary experiences. In this case, because I am, I guess in terms of being a late blooming non-binary person, I did not first start realizing it till I was 40, and now I'm going to be 47 this year. It seemed like it would be pretty cool to create maybe this Q&A kind of thing. Maybe this could be a regular thing depending on how it's received. I purposely have not thought about these questions ahead of time. I think it's a more genuine response for me just to share with you as I'm reading them. So let me tell you the first question. When you realized you were non-binary, did you come out right away, or was it more of a process? Absolutely, it was a process. I have told this story before, but if you haven't heard it, when I was 40, which was almost 7 years ago, I went to a conference in Philadelphia. They had a workshop about non-binary identities, and at the time, even though I had worked with maybe one or two teenage clients who were non-binary, I did not make the connection that this was potentially who I was as well. And at the beginning of this workshop, they said, everybody go around the room and tell us if you're trans or cisgender, which is kind of a strange question in retrospect, but it was that question that started everything for me. I had no idea that I was going to have the reaction that I did, which is where I wasn't sure how I wanted to answer that question. And so that kind of started it right there. And over a period of time, I just slowly and surely started changing some things about myself. Most obvious was probably when I got a different haircut. It's interesting. It's like little things started to reveal themselves to me, where I would wear earrings, even though they were small and somewhat subtle. I just realized one day, I don't think so anymore. I was wearing a little bit of eyeshadow. I was like, I don't think I want to do that anymore. I would carry not ever a purse really, but this kind of satchel kind of thing. Even that felt too much like a purse to me, and I just one day stopped doing that. Just as I kind of evolved over time, it really was just one little thing every few weeks, every couple months or so. I would even say as I started to get more tattoos on myself, it's not like that's a non-binary gender expression. This was just me trying to find my Dara expression of myself and letting go of what was preconceived to me based on being assigned female at birth. And I just had to start recognizing what didn't feel like it aligned with me, who I was as a person. And yes, the word non-binary is a word that can be used to describe that, but it was really trying to suss out what it is that fit me and what didn't fit me. It was a really big step. I would say a couple of big steps was when I had chest reduction surgery in 2017. And then I started low dose testosterone in the summer of 2019. Those felt like bigger steps. Changing my pronouns to they, them. I first changed it on Facebook, and it was probably at least a year after that before I made the definite decision to let everybody know these are now officially going to be my pronouns. Besides, you could also use my name in place of a pronoun. So it is absolutely a process. Next, when you realized you were non-binary, how hard was it to tell your partner, your family, your friends? So I should probably say first and foremost, I'm extremely lucky, fortunate that everybody in those categories in my life are people who are, I'll just say, quite progressive. I had no concerns regarding anybody being, I guess, like feeling like that there's something wrong with me as a person because of this. So that was great. It's kind of funny, but when I think about it, I didn't really come out because everybody just kind of saw things happening a little bit at a time and just sort of went along with it. So really it just became something where I needed to give updates, especially let's say when it came to updating my pronouns. That's been the biggest challenge of getting family, friends, get used to that and be able to make that shift. Everything else, I guess they just sort of witnessed as it was going along. So I think this has to do a lot with the people I have in my life and how that went so well or went so smoothly. Really, people just saw me becoming happier and more content in myself. And that was really all they needed to see. I will say one thing that I realized is that because I didn't necessarily come out, I never really gave anybody, those people that I just mentioned, like a chance to talk to me about it, like either ask me questions, or if they did have any feelings about it. I would say especially my parents, who are both in their 70s, in terms of changing their language that they would use with me as well, anything that's female gendered. So for instance, for these folks in my life, I have tried to make it known now if they have any questions, or, for the most part, there's just like a sense of nervousness that they have in terms of misgendering me and feeling bad about it, not wanting to hurt me in the process. So that's really, I would say, the conversation that's been the most ongoing, is to continue navigating language like that with them. The next question is, before telling people, did you ever feel like it was overwhelming and wished not to have to deal with it? So again, I think in my case, this did not come up. Again, I am not the only non-binary experience out there. Everybody's relationship with their partner and their family and their friends is so different. And so whatever the fears and resistance and challenges are for other people, they are so real and super intense, depending on who you are and what these different relationships are to you in your life. So it's absolutely understandable if there is a sense of overwhelm to talk to people in your life, especially if you feel like it'll really change the dynamic of your relationship because of it. Next, in your eyes, what is the most difficult thing about being non-binary? I would say that the fact that our society is not created with non-binary people in mind. So there's constant reminders everywhere all the time of gendered language and of being misgendered as female, being misgendered as male on a regular basis, and what that's like to go through that, not having different things set up in the meantime when it comes to paperwork that you're filling out. Those of you who are non-binary know what I mean. There's just this constant stream of binariness in our society that we are having to choose. Do we say something about it or not? And in the meantime, it feels like these tiny little paper cuts are happening throughout your day in terms of how much you're being misgendered, and which can feel like you're being forgotten, looked over as a person. And so I'd say that's the hardest part of being non-binary. Have you had good experiences when dealing with doctors and them understanding you as a non-binary patient? So currently, I do have a doctor who specializes in working with trans clients, including non-binary patients. And it's so great not to have that as a concern. I would say before that, I had maybe one or two physicians. I was physician hopping a little bit, trying to find somebody who I'd be comfortable working with. Nobody was outright hostile, but the lack of understanding about it, I felt like, me sharing that I was non-binary was just interesting to them, and they would make sure they got my pronouns right. But when it came to like my whole medical history, it's almost like it was just sort of over here instead of being considered for the holistic picture of everything. So that ended up being a definite issue, especially as I started noticing I was having hormone issues and they were being missed. And so having a doctor who gets it, that fits into the whole big picture, has been extremely helpful. The last question has to do with my chest reduction surgery. What are a few things you wished you knew before your surgery? They could be positive or not so positive things. I would say, for one, this probably sounds cliche, is that I do wish I had done it sooner. I'm a believer that everything happens in its own time, but I do wish I had done it sooner because the amount of relief and how much better I felt in my body and how that helped me feel more integrated in myself and comfortable with myself was tremendous. So that's one thing. I would say when it comes to the recovery process, I really was glad how much I prepared for it ahead of time in terms of, doing research about what's good to eat or drink before surgery and not eat or drink and what to have afterwards. I feel like the recovery process went much smoother than I thought it would. And so I potentially spent more time being anxious and forward thinking, worried about it. I think there's a fine line where you think about it enough and worry about it enough to just do what is necessary to plan ahead for it, and then sort of like letting go of it. I did a pretty good job of that, but I think I could have done even better in terms of doing what I needed to do to get ready for it, and then letting go and trusting the rest of the process. I'd say the only other thing regarding surgery, so for those of you who don't know, I've done some videos about this in the past, but I ended up getting the surgery done and having it paid for insurance as a medical necessity because of like fibrous, dense tissues in my boobs. And so I did not end up needing to have it approved as a trans affirming surgery. So the surgeon that I had, he didn't know anything about being trans. I didn't talk about it at all. I pretty much just said, I'd like for you to go as small as possible. Thank you. And he's like, well, I just need to make sure I save the nipples if you want the nipples. And I said, yes, please. And so that was the extent of our conversation having to do with myself as a human being and how I wanted the results to be. And it turned out fine. I don't know. It's tricky. I do kind of think about how I wish I had had more of a conversation with him about that, because I think it was lucky that my results turned out as well as I wanted in terms of does fit who I am. That is one thing that I can't necessarily say I regret because it was fine, but I could see how that could have gone poorly. Because I did not speak more to my experience and what it is that I needed from the surgery. All right. Well, that is some non-binary Q&A with Dara. Let's call it that and see how that goes. How about if you have questions that you'd like to put in the comments, I will take a look at them, and every now and then I'll hop on and do one of these videos and see if that ends up being helpful for you or not. I know that a lot of you are seeking answers, and I'm happy to be here to help however I can. So I'll see you in the next video.